Before I begin on why you're all here today, I'd like you all to do a bit of role play for me. Imagine that you're a new immigrant, fairly educated in your home country, but English is still a bit of a challenge. Throw in being a parent and working a part-time job. Now, on top of all that, you're taking classes in English to maybe get into post-secondary or to try to get a better job. Not an easy path, right? It should be familiar to all of you though, because you all teach students that may have this story or something similar. The road isn't easy, but they see a better future with more education. It is our responsibility as educators to try to light that path and make it easier for them to traverse, even if it's just a little. When we look at the behaviorist learning theory, we know that learners learn from past behaviors. Associations made previously will dictate how a learner reacts in the future. Professors Ertmer and Newby give an example about showing a math flashcard with 2 plus 4 on it and the learner answering 6. Memory plays a big part in this process as a learner recalls seeing that 6 is the answer to 2 plus 4. In our scenario, most of our adult learners are older and may not be as technologically adept to learning online. We cannot expect them to count on past knowledge. Instead, I would suggest perhaps a constructivist approach towards teaching might be more appropriate. Create the scenarios where learners can work together to build something that can show the learning and comprehension. Learners will be at different levels, but the sharing interactions can definitely allow for knowledge mobilization and to build up their social skills. Now, what makes a good learning environment? The Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, or OECD, believes that learning environments must be learner-centered, structured and well-designed, profoundly personalized, inclusive, and finally, social. I'm sure for all of you as teachers, you try to incorporate these elements into your everyday teaching. The dynamic, though, changes a little when you're online. You all have experience in teaching in a face-to-face environment, but now you are challenged with recreating these successful learning conditions in a partially online environment. The hybrid delivery model allows for both in-class and online instruction. How that will look and the format will be up to you, the teachers. The last 3 elements that the OECD set out, personalization, inclusion, and socialization, need to be focused upon in the online component, because the dynamics are, as you can imagine, different in the online scenario. And the world itself is changing all around us. New technology is making what may have been difficult in the past more accessible today. A lot of technology can be disruptive, but can make real strides in enhancing learning. We must filter out the technology that is new for the sake of being new and selecting that can actually help us and create real innovation. Bates's actions model can help us with that selection. First, access. All users need to be able to access the technology. Second is cost. We are a public school board and we have to be conscious about the cost and the value that the technology can bring. Third, teaching and learning. In the end, it must support the learning and be able to assist in the teaching. Fourth, interactivity and user-friendliness. Learners will not use the technology if it doesn't meet this criteria of being both interactive and, of course, user-friendly. Fifth, organizational issues. This is something that our board must manage as a whole organization in terms of adoption across the entire organization if it's to be successful. Sixth, novelty. Is this really cutting edge? Is the technology bringing something new to the table? And finally, speed. How quickly can we implement this new technology for all our students to use? So that brings us to why we're here today. Why design thinking? I'd like to quote Crichton and Carter's Taking Making into Classrooms toolkit. They state, design thinking is a human-centered design process that seeks to gain empathy for a situation by developing understanding of the concerns, insights, lived experience, and/or needs of others. The focus is on empathy. Research has shown that empathy is critical to instructional design and that instructional strategies should reflect empathy. The design thinking process by Stanford's D School has 4 phases, which are design, tinker, thinker, and reflect. Design is exactly what it sounds like. You want to come up with something through questioning, interviewing, and hopefully be able to gain some empathy through a connection person to person. When you get to tinker, you get to make modifications and do a bit of refinement after consideration of all the aspects in the design phase. Thinker. Here's where you can get feedback from others, and from there you can do a bit more tinkering based on the observations of your peers. Finally, at reflect, you can bring it all together and hopefully have a prototype to be tested. Now, don't worry about having a polished product at the end, because it's not really the end. Design thinking can be an iterative process, and what you gain is not just from the end product, but at each step you are learning something new, and each time you go through it, hopefully you will be gaining something new. Innovation in itself is probably something we don't hear too much in a public sector institution such as our school board. Bureaucracies are known to be the slowest moving organizations, with change taking much longer than it should. Fortunately, we should be looking at innovation as a continuum rather than a destination or a status. We have our standard curriculum, which will still be in place. In-class instruction will also remain. Something renewed in the mix will be online teaching and learning. How much change and modification will be, as I said, up to you, the instructors and designers. One could have a web-facilitated learning with the crux of teaching still taking place in the class. On the other hand, you could have more online synchronous lessons. Also, modularization of courses is on the horizon for us as well. Many things can happen within hybrid learning, and it all doesn't have to happen linearly. Now we've come full circle. Remember when I asked you all to put yourselves in the shoes of the learner? It should all be becoming clear now. High quality courses have an element of empathy to them. By knowing your audience, the learners, and recognizing that online learning has different considerations to them than in-class instruction, all while keeping the material relevant to the students, is the goal we need to reach. Empathetic design is also sensitive design. There are 4 sensitivities that we should be keeping in mind. Sensitivity towards humans. Similar to knowing your audience by taking into account their experiences and context. Sensitivity towards design. Good design is well thought out, with plenty of questions being asked throughout the process. Sensitivity towards techniques. Incorporating good techniques to achieve your goals and applying proper judgment towards what's needed. And finally, sensitivity towards collaboration, because we can accomplish so much more as a group rather than being alone. There is a reason why this design challenge is not an individual activity. I hope by going through this design challenge, you can all take back a different mindset, a growth mindset where we can embrace challenge and can learn from criticism. Please enjoy working through the process, and I can't wait to see what emerges from your design challenges.